Hello there, welcome to Cool Talk. Today we discuss Terence Malick's Days of Heaven, his second film. In the previous video we analyzed Badlands. That was Malick's most conventional film. Days of Heaven is somewhat conventional, but here we could see Terence Malick entering his own. The camera works poetically. There's a lot of lyrical movements, we could say. We could see the voice, we could hear the voice over narrative. There's a lot of biblical symbolism in the movie. I've mentioned before that Malick is a spiritual man. But more than anything else, the wonderful cinematography. He shot a lot of the film at right after sunrise or right before sunset. They call this the magic hour. Used a lot of natural lighting. And look at these images right here. You can practically choose any frame that you see here and hang it on the wall. And now we're going to talk about the cinematographer himself, Nestor Almendros. Nestor Almendros captured all the images we were just looking at. But believe it or not, around this time he was going blind. He would have to take Polaroid photos of what he wanted to see, look at the photos with these special deep lens glasses, and then tell the cameraman what he wanted them to do. Almendros won the Oscar for cinematography for Days of Heaven. And he would be nominated 3 more times for Kramer vs. Kramer, The Blue Lagoon, and Sophie's Choice. He died in 1992, and it's a shame that he never got to work with Terence Malick again. Terence Malick would take a 20-year hiatus after Days of Heaven and wouldn't work again until 1998. When Days of Heaven opens, it's around 1916, the turn of the century. And a little spoiler alert, but not much of a spoiler. It happens within the first couple of minutes. Richard Gere plays a man named Bill, who is working in a foundry. He gets into an argument with the foreman. What do they argue about? We don't know. We can't hear. Maybe Terence Malick doesn't feel that it's important what they were arguing about. Or perhaps because of the narrator of the story wasn't there, she doesn't know. But there was an argument. He kills him accidentally, and he runs off. He gathers up his little sister and his girlfriend. They get on a train and they go to the Midwest to escape justice. Here we get the first biblical reference. Bill tells his girlfriend Abby, played by Brooke Adams, to tell everybody that he is her brother. This is an obvious reference to Abraham from the Bible, who did the same. Now we learn of this because of his little sister Linda, played by actress Linda Manns. Linda is the one giving the voiceover narrative. Now because she's a kid, she's also an unreliable narrator. We have to stop for a moment and praise Linda Manns. She was a great actress, very natural, very authentic, even at her age. Now, she's 15, playing a 12-year-old. She's very tiny. And we don't know what would have happened because she did a few films after this, but about 10 years later, she got married and was having so much fun being a housewife and a mother that she decided to run away from Hollywood. Sadly, Linda Manns died of lung cancer in 2020. When you watch Days of Heaven, it helps if you look at it as the memory of a child. When they arrived at the farm, there's a big farmhouse kind of in the middle of nowhere. A big house that belongs to the rich farmer, and the farm hands, the workers, are told, don't go there. The poor, of course, want to live in a house like that. It's kind of a reverse Eden, but you can't enter. The farmer is played by Shepard. The farmer is rich, he lives in the house that nobody can go to, and a lot of the farm hands, the workers, are envious of him. Linda says at one point, though, that she feels sorry for him because he lives alone and has nobody to take care of him. Now, the farmer starts to look at Abby from afar. He's kind of lusting after her. The foreman tells the farmer that he doesn't trust Bill or Abby. He believes they're con people. And the farmer doesn't listen. He kind of succumbs to his lust. Bill notices that the farmer is checking out Abby, and he tells Abby, hey, he thinks I'm your brother. You know, if you play with this man, perhaps you can marry him. He's terminally ill. When he passes away, you get to inherit everything. It's kind of an Adam and Eve story in reverse, where Adam approaches Eve with a temptation. And now here's where I have a problem with Terence Malick. And that is, we see some scenes where Bill is talking to the farmer about his disappointment in life. We have a scene where Linda asks Abby, "Why are you doing this?" And Abby says that when she was in Chicago, she never saw the sun because she was working all day wrapping cigars, and that life was hard. But these conversations go nowhere because Terence Malick cuts away from them. And it's as if he wants us to see the story through Linda's memory, and she only remembers little snippets here and there about this. It's an interesting approach, but it doesn't quite work for me. I prefer something a little bit more conventional. And I have to say, I also had a problem with Richard Gere looking like a GQ model. He's supposed to look like a farmhand. Apparently he has no facial hair. He looks like he blow-dried his hair. He's always clean. Or perhaps this is how his little sister Linda remembers him. There's a few shots where animals get hurt. A couple of rabbits and chickens are out there in the fields, hidden deep within the wheat, and when the wheat threshers come by, it just chops them up. It's Terence Malick's way of saying that nature is not immoral, or has any morality at all. Nature is amoral. Nature can give us fruit, but it can also give us storms. Now, biblically, we know the Bible verses that say that it rains on the good and the wicked alike. Now, in the movie, you could look at this as that good consequences and bad consequences can happen both to righteous people and evil people. And the consequences can be random. We don't know where it's going to go. The film has beautiful art direction. I spoke about the cinematography, costume design, and it had a very authentic look. They used actual 1916 wheat threshers. There were a lot of people there speaking different languages, which was very common. We had a lot of immigrants coming into the country, working in our fields, and look at the grain, look at the wheat flowing right over here. But while we're watching all this beauty in the movie, Linda also narrates and says that there is good and evil in all of us. She also mentions a story of some boy that told her about flames engulfing the earth, and that the good will go to heaven and the wicked will be down here, and that God doesn't listen to the wicked. Now, the foreman, who kind of looks a little biblical in these shots right over here, he warns the farmer to be careful with Bill and Abby. And later on, the farmer actually gets angry and sends the foreman away. The foreman takes on a kind of a fatherly figure and possibly even represents God. But here we have a reverse earthly Jesus, the farmer, who's shying away from God and sending God outside of Eden. So while the farmer succumbs to temptation of lust, we have Bill and Abby who are succumbing to the temptation of greed and envy. And it's around this point that the farmer warns Bill and tells him, "Look, be careful. That farmer, that boy, is like a son to me." Well, Abby, Bill, and Linda will make their way into the farmhouse, into Eden. Abby marries the farmer. And then plans don't go accordingly because the farmer, instead of being terminally ill, starts to feel better. Abby starts to fall in love with the farmer, and Bill starts to get insanely jealous. So Bill, Abby, and Linda are in Eden, dressing well and enjoying the rich life. And it's around this point that Linda opens a book about animals, and on the last page, she sees a picture of a snake. And if that wasn't biblical enough, we get a plague of locusts. Now, you may wonder how they filmed this. Terence Malick did not use CGI. This is back in the 1970s. Now, he did gather a lot of locusts to film the scene, but for this shot right over here, Terence Malick had thousands and thousands of peanut shells painted black. Then he raised them above the actors and dropped them. Then he reversed the camera film, so what we see is actually going backwards. The peanut shells seem to rise instead of fall. And then we get fire. There were some shots before these events that gave us a foreboding that something evil was coming. Look at this shot right here, as if God is looking down on us. And little by little, the farmer started coming to his senses, but he doesn't listen to his common sense until the fire comes. By that point, he rides off the next morning through this Armageddon to face Bill and to kill him. But in the process, what ends up happening is he doesn't pull the trigger and Bill kills him. If you're spiritual, you could look at this several different ways. You could say to yourself, well, this is the farmer paying the price because he succumbed to his anger. Or you could also say it was just a random act and this is the way it turned out because he didn't pull the trigger. Or you could say that the last second, he's not a killer. He's a good man, so he did not pull the trigger. And this is why he got killed, but it's also his saving grace. Well, then Bill grabs Abby and Linda. They get in the car and they rush away from Eden, just like Adam and Eve were running away from God. And here, the godlike figure gathers up some men and they rush out to hunt down Bill, find him hiding among the grass, just like the chickens and the rabbits that were trapped before them. And they kill Bill. Bill is dead. Now, I have to admit I was disappointed that Abby did not receive any kind of punishment. She was complicit in the activities of Bill, with the exception of Bill killing the farmer. Now, perhaps this is a way of Terence Malick telling us that random good and random bad things do happen to everybody. On the other hand, though, she inherits the money from the farmer. You see her dressing very well. She drops Linda off at a boarding house. I believe she did it with the best intentions of Linda getting some kind of stability instead of running around. Abby is seen, the last we see of Abby is her getting on a train with a bunch of soldiers. It's 1916, the beginning of World War I. And since Abby had mentioned at one point she wanted to be a nurse, perhaps she's trying to atone for her activities. Now, Abby did show remorse after the farmer's death. Now, others feel that Abby getting on the train indicates that she's going to continue with her life of getting herself another man and may say something about the objectification of women. Others feel that she's succumbing to the effects of capitalism. It's all up for interpretation. As for Linda, she escapes the boarding house with a new friend. They go to the railroad tracks. Now, in an earlier shot, we see Bill running away from Chicago, and he looks back as if uncertain. And in the last shot of the movie, we see Linda also looking back as if she's not sure where she's going. In her last voiceover, she talks about her friend and hopes that everything works out for her. She's really talking about herself or her childhood. Now, whatever happens to Linda, we wish her the best, and hopefully she follows an honest life. I wanted to say before I end the video that Linda Manz had died, as I mentioned, in August of 2020, and 1 month earlier, Ennio Morricone, the composer of Days of Heaven, also passed away. He was 91 years old. My next Terence Malick film is The Thin Red Line, which Terence Malick filmed in 1998. So in the meantime, though, send me your likes, send me your comments, or better yet, subscribe. This is Cool Talk.